G'day guys, welcome to PBHQ Live. This is episode number 343. I'm Dwayne Nichols. I'm coming to you live from Wagga with all of your paintball news here in Australia and around the world. The NXL in the US is coming up this weekend, so we're going to be talking about that one. If you are joining in as we kick off the show here live on YouTube, let me know who you are and where you are. Drop a comment. You can also subscribe to the channel if you have not already done that. I would appreciate it if you did. Please jump over and do that. Brad Short is in from the Wicked Assassins. Quick shout out to the Wicked Assassins too, putting on a little training clinic of kind for the people in Sydney over the weekend. A lot of new players out of that. Seen a couple of photos from that. Cooper from Adelaide Bounty Hunters checking in. John O'Collins is in. Connor Johnston from PB Athlete. Speaking of the Bounty Hunters, got right here up in the background the Bounty Hunters jersey that I was handed as a gift from the guys from the Bounty Hunters over the weekend who came over. The Bounty Hunters from Adelaide bought the bunker set from here in Wagga, so that has made its way back to Adelaide, and they had a few players out at training on the weekend. So thank you to those guys, and I hope that the field serves you as well as it has for us for the past couple of years. We originally bought the field in about 2018 and then added to it a couple of times along the way with the additional bunkers that came out in the subsequent years. So they're getting an almost up-to-date bunker set for over in Adelaide. Russell Ryder from Crisis in New Zealand is in, and Lachlan from PPG is in, who I've been back and forth with a little bit today in the last couple of days, speaking about the NXL ACT event, which I'm going to touch on a little bit later in the show. If you are watching at the moment, please hit the share button too. Jump over onto your socials, share the show so that other people can jump in and check it out throughout the course of tonight. Paintballshop.com are the major sponsor, or not the only major sponsor, but are one of the major sponsors of this show, and they will be having the Ether 3 arriving this week. So they've already had Ether 3s in at paintballshop.com, but they have more arriving this week, including these with the color kits, something that you haven't seen in the Ether range of guns. They've either had their HDE Earth colorway in the Ether and Ether 2 or black, and now they are coming out with these couple of additional colorways with your back cap, a few little accents, the ASA, and that type of thing. So nice little touch to personalize your Ether 3 if you're looking to get one. They're at paintballshop.com now. Also, they will be later this week. My apologies. So if you want to go and get one, that is the place to do it. And as far as buying it feels wrong to call it a low-end gun. An entry-level tournament marker, I guess, because it's certainly anything but a low-end gun. The Ether 3 is a damn good bit of gear without some of the bells and whistles of the high-end stuff, but it will do you no harm in owning an Ether 3. You would be just as competitive as a lot of the players with the best markers in the game. Cooper says the field is killer. Thanks, mate. Craig is in. Look at that jersey. Yeah, well, I mentioned that I would have it up there. Susan is in as well. Yeah, Craig and Richard making a massive trip over. So Friday night left Adelaide, get to Wagga Saturday morning, pack the field up, back to Adelaide, another 9 hours worth of driving on the Saturday, get home at dinner time Saturday, out to the field Sunday morning to start training. So massive effort from those guys. And the other major sponsor of the show is Gladiator, of course. And this week they wanted to promote Shoot Air, which is their air rifle tanks. So for anyone that might be into this or know that people that are into this, field owners would know that you get calls from time to time about filling these tanks, or at least I do. In fact, I got one today from a guy close to Wagga who uses an air rifle, and his scuba tank is actually out of date and needs hydro testing, so it'll be going to get hydro tested and then filled soon. But if you are into that type of thing, well, this is something that Gladiator do that not everybody would know about. And because it's a composite material, whilst you're getting the same pressure, so 310 bar, which we know is 4,500 PSI, it is still significantly lighter than the tanks that you would be most familiar with, that you see people getting around with, the steel scuba tanks. Much lighter. So if you weren't aware of that, that's something else that Gladiator do. You can go to their shootair.com.au website to check out the information on that if you are so interested. And it seemed like just before COVID, I was getting a heap of calls from people with air rifles looking to have their scuba tanks filled up. So it went through a bit of a phase of being quite popular, and I think the guns themselves can be much more affordable. So there is a market there for it, and it's something that Gladiator do. On top of their awesome paintball products, they also get into the air rifle stuff. Now, the major talking points of the last few days and the upcoming week or so is that Planet Eclipse have released the GTEK 180R. Now, it has been in the region of about a year that I've finally stopped saying 160R and started saying 170R, and I've finally got the hang of that. I don't know, for whatever reason, it just was like default mode in my brain that I would say 160 when talking about the GTEKs. And now the 180 has come in to just confuse things even more for me. And I guess I got a few things to talk on this. I like the milling, I like the cuts, I like the colorways that the Planet Eclipse 180R has released with. It has a new drivetrain. It has new electronics, so the software throughout is all new. The ergonomics are supposed to be better, and a 3-piece barrel kit that now takes a barrel insert, and it's got the low-rise feed neck rather than the standard feed neck. It's starting to get to the point, at least in my opinion, and I spoke with Mike Wybrew on the phone about this earlier today, I'm going to find it hard to justify buying a high-end marker when the mid to high-end range, such as the 180R, is so good. I just don't see, especially with the dollar comparison and the price at the moment, to buy a CS3, I haven't gone onto the paintball shop website and compared prices, but I think they're in the region of like $2,700 or $2,800. I imagine this is going to come in at around that $1,800 mark, just a little bit more expensive than the 170R was at like the $1,650, I think, or thereabouts. Why would you spend $1,000 more on a CS3 over this GTEK 180R? It just, it's going to be really hard to justify if the mid to high end keeps producing such quality markers. And the DSR is another great example, the DSR Plus from Dye, which I've mentioned many times on this show. I think the DSR Plus is a better gun than the M3. So, yeah, I just don't know if the paintball manufacturers are shooting themselves in the foot. I don't know if that's what the market is demanding. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what you guys think on the 180R and what you've seen in the video. Connor says 180R looks like a monster of a marker. Likes the colorways, gets black. Yeah, well, that's, look, I'm not going to be buying a 180R regardless, for me personally. But yeah, I probably would buy it all in black, like all of my other markers. But the colorways, not a lot of companies do orange, of which the logo for this show and for my field and Asylum, by way of being out of our field, we have a lot of orange and black. In particular, I think the orange and gunmetal grey on this one, which is called Ember Storm, hate the name Ember Storm, that just seems ridiculous, but the colorway is nice. The orange on gunmetal grey, I'm all for it. If I was going to go away from black, perhaps that's the way that I would go. And there's a bunch of colorways. I don't have all the pictures queued up for the show tonight, but there's a bunch of them. It's one thing that a lot of the companies do well, and Eclipse in particular, they've got, if you can't find a colorway that you like, well, you're probably not trying hard enough. Billy Colias is joining in from the Wicked Assassins. I imagine he would have been out there being one of the ones helping out over the weekend with the new players, one of the more experienced Wicked Assassins there. The NXL Texas is coming up this weekend. That is the other big talking point for this weekend. This is the field layout that they released just last week in preparation for the end. A little bit more traditional than the last couple of field layouts that they've ran with. From what I can see, and just in my first sort of glance and first look at this field layout, I don't really like the double Doritos sort of, I don't know what you would call it, the like inset Doritos and the outset Doritos. Not a huge fan of that. I do like that ladder snake that you see there. All the snake beams connected, and there is also no snake corners if you take notice of that. So I think the elite snake players of the world, of which professional paintball is blessed with a handful of real standouts, I think the elite snake attackers are going to have a field day out on this layout. I'm keen to see how it plays out, check out a few games across the weekend. The bookings at my field this weekend aren't too crazy, so I might get to actually watch some games from the last event when they played out in Florida. I think I worked, like 8 till 4 or 8 till 5 both days, Saturday and Sunday, and didn't get to watch any games from that weekend. But this weekend, things are a little bit quieter. I should be able to watch a little bit of paintball. Oh, Billy was away using real guns. Yeah, well, I'm glad you weren't doing that with some of the new players, mate. That would have wouldn't have been able to bring them back if you were using real guns with them. And Connor saying rumors of a new Shocker and Lux too. I have heard that the a few people saying that the shelf life of the Lux and Shocker markers is usually between 2 and 3 years, and it's been about that span of time since we've seen anything from those guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I used to speak a lot with Neil in Belgium, who gave me the tip as far as a lot of Lux-related stuff was concerned, but I haven't spoke to him much lately, and even if I did, I'm not sure he more recently hasn't been as free-flowing with all the tips and the information as he used to be, so I might need to twist his arm and see if I can find out something and have a bit of an exclusive on the show sometime in the future. Dynasty won the last event, beating Damage in the final. I imagine Dynasty will feature again. New York Extreme were up in the top 4 last event. A few teams that were expected to do much better didn't do so well. I'm interested to see how it plays out. Hopefully I can watch a little bit along the way. Do you have any thoughts on who's going to win that event? It's hard to back against Dynasty. They're just winning more often than not at the moment. They actually shared some photos from their training weekend. They trained against Revo out on the weekend on what looked like an incredible field. I can't remember the name of the place that they shouted out, but it looked like an absolutely incredible field for that one. And Cooper saying, my T2000 is still kicking and shooting amazing. Don't think I could justify 3K for another. Yeah, well, yeah, I don't think, even as someone that I can write paintball guns off as a tax, for tax purposes from owning a field. I just can't bring myself. $3,000 for a gun is just, it's really starting to get up there. The exchange rate is tough at the moment. That's the way that it is. The prices of manufacturing things, shipping expenses are ridiculous at the moment. So everything's just gone up. But yeah, I agree. I find it hard to justify spending in the region of $3,000 on a marker, no matter how good it is. And especially, I'm shooting the MacDev XTS. I know guys shooting GTEK 180Rs. All of these markers from a couple of years ago, there's only minor improvements happening now. The technology in markers has got to such a point that the improvements are mostly minor and not dramatic. And if you've got a marker from a couple of years ago that's still working as you would expect it to, then yeah, how are you going to justify going out and upgrading your marker? Chester Ricella is joining in at the moment. Thanks for checking in the show here tonight, mate. So that's the NXL Texas coming up, and I think the NXL in the US. Oh, and I haven't spoke to Dave Hopkins just quickly on that, but I believe that the Manawatu Titans are making their way from New Zealand again for that event. So best of luck to those guys, our sort of home region team playing in the semi-pro division of the US NXL. So I hope to see them doing well. The NXL in the US is just hitting its straps at the moment. Seems like it's bounced back from COVID exceptionally well. Then on the flip side, here in Australia, the NXL cancellations are just adding up one after the other. I spoke with Wertho earlier today. He put out this little release on the right-hand side of your screen there that the NXL Queensland event that was due to be happening on the 6th and 7th of May at Bundaberg in Queensland has been cancelled. The trailer with the bunkers and other bits and pieces was at Townsville from the previous event, and getting it down to Bundaberg just seemed like it was going to be too costly. They only had 4 teams registered. They need at least 6 teams to make the tournament viable. So the NXL Australia struggling for teams in Queensland, but that is not only the case in Queensland. In Victoria, the first event of this year that was scheduled was cancelled and postponed back until the same weekend, the 6th and 7th of May, for the NXL in Victoria. Those guys, last I knew, and I'm in the NXL chat for down in Victoria, I think 2 teams were keen to sign up for that one. There may have been others since I last checked, but I'm going to find it hard to believe that the NXL in Victoria goes ahead. And off the back of COVID, Victoria copped it worse than anybody as far as participation rates dropping off and that type of thing. Victoria went through it really hard through COVID and has not bounced back in any way whatsoever. I think training numbers at Sniper's Den are okay, but as far as playing the tournaments, numbers last year were down and only propped up by interstate teams traveling in, and then numbers this year, well, yeah, first event cancelled. Looks like that might be the case with this one as well. Kind of saying they're practicing. Are you talking about Snipers Den with the practices? I heard that they're getting sort of between 10 and 20 players out on any given weekend, which is decent numbers. It's not amazing. It's not pre-COVID numbers, but it's not too bad. So I think Sniper's Den is probably in Victoria, the place that has to get the wheels spinning to get the game up off the ground again, whether that's running a 3-man for fun with low entry costs and no prizes, but just to get people back out and competing again. I don't know what the answer is. And then in the NXL ACT, we were scraping together a team from here in Asylum to head over next week or this coming weekend in Canberra. Emailed those guys on Thursday, heard back Friday that it didn't look like the event was going to go ahead, and then spoke with Lachlan from PPG yesterday and today, who was trying to get 2 teams together from PPG and sort of the remnants of Anomaly, a team from Canberra that sprung up in the last couple of years to potentially play that one. And it looked as though there was only going to be 4 teams for the NXL and ACT. So whilst I don't have absolute confirmation for that one, the guys from Sydney probably wouldn't make the trip if there was only going to be 4 or 5 teams. Our guys from here in Wagga, without hearing back, guys took extra shifts with work and whatnot. So the NXL ACT that didn't run their first event going back 6 or 8 weeks or so, it appears as though won't be running this weekend. There may still be some sort of training day or a social day, but as far as a tournament is concerned, that might not be happening. Oh, and sorry, yeah, Connor saying that the Titans are over in the US. So yeah, sorry, I misinterpreted that. But and again, best of luck to those guys. So for whatever reason, the NXL in WA, Timmy Colgan is doing a decent job over there, still getting the same 6 to 7 teams at most events. Things are going their way. The NXL in Queensland is really struggling. I think their added difficulty is with the fact that Wertho has been trying to play the events in different locations. And whilst that idea, I really like the idea, it sounds good on paper, of taking an event to Bundaberg, one to Townsville, one in Brisbane, moving the event around. I really like it in theory, but in practice, it just doesn't seem to be working. He does have an idea, and because they've got a bit of sponsorship money from previous events that didn't go ahead and whatnot, they've got like a little prize pool of 5 or 6 grand that they want to put into one event for the next event for the NXL Queensland. He's got some ideas around that, so hopefully they bounce back. Sarah Birch in Victoria has been doing, on a volunteer basis, as good a job as you can expect her to do, trying to get people interested. But like I mentioned, Victoria is really struggling, so it's tough for her to get teams to register for events. I think that Denny and the guys from the Coldstream venue probably need to do a little bit more if they want the NXL to succeed down there. And much the same goes for Graham. I've spoken with players in Canberra, but not a great deal lately. I don't think there's a lot happening there training-wise. And I know for us here in Wagga, it's much the same training-wise. Guys aren't getting out and training as often as they were. That translates into people not playing events. So there is a lot of challenges for events at the moment, and I did post about it earlier today and got some interesting feedback. The one that I really wanted to highlight was both the Super 7s that are doing okay, and you might even find with Super 7s, the 2-day events that have been 2-day events for M's, that might become a 1-day event. The semi-pro division is looking quite strong though, so we'll stay 2 days. And you may even, if pro stays at 6 teams, I know there was discussions at 6 teams that they could potentially do the Pro Division all in one day for the last event, which didn't happen. It ran over 2. And I know that that's a consideration for the Super Sevens this time. Elite 1 at Coffs Harbour, they're turning teams away. The mid-north coast of New South Wales paintball scene at the moment is unbelievable. And Donovan Newton made a comment that I seen earlier today, talking about the hospitality, the effort that they go to at Elite 1, the types of people that they attract to their events, and the people that the staff and the family, because it is a family business that run their events, are. And the best analogy that I can use that compares it to is, for example, I live in a cul-de-sac with 8 houses in it. And if, say, a kid set up a lemonade stand in my street that has 8 houses in it and probably has 8 cars go up and down it all day, versus the main highway up the road that has 30,000 cars go up it, and you wonder why, if you just put your lemonade stand in a cul-de-sac and don't tell anyone that it's there, and you don't tell anyone about your product, and you wonder why you're not selling anything. That reminds me of a lot of event organizers in Australia at the moment. A lot of people put a post up and say, these are our events this year. They post the dates and they do nothing else. It takes more than that to be an event promoter. You have to build relationships with teams. That's, I think, my biggest strength with the teams that come and play the Wagga 3-man. All of the teams that come and play our events, I have such a great relationship with. I speak to them throughout the year, whether they're playing my events or otherwise. Often, and I'm quite lucky in this sense, that often they're watching PBHQ as well. So I get to maintain that relationship throughout the year. But you cannot just set up an event and say these are the dates and expect people to sign up. You need to put in more legwork than that. NXL format in Australia is odd, says Lachlan. Unsure why they run under the banner rather than independently. Yeah, and if you went back to 2016-17 when it all kicked off, the idea was that you would play in your local state NXL and that you would qualify for the NXL finals at a national level. If you won the national tournament, you'd win a trip to World Cup. That happened twice. Envious got to go, and Ballistics Unit won it, but COVID interrupted, so they didn't get to go. I don't know who the other team, if there was another team that actually got to make the trip, but that was the draw card initially, is that, yeah, you would play in your own state, qualify for the finals, and if you won finals, you got to go to the US on a, well, not all expenses paid, but a most expenses paid trip for World Cup, which was a massive draw card. Asylum, we played the first NXL Victoria series in Victoria, finished 2nd overall in Victoria, qualified for finals, and got 4th overall at the national finals that year. Yes, which was a really cool, Raw, sorry, were the other team that, got to take the trip. So Elmo and the guys from Raw did get to make the trip. They were the inaugural winners, and then Envious got a chance and they won as well. So it was really cool in its early days. Then NXL Queensland had a lot of issues and fell over, was dormant for a couple of years, came back. NXL New South Wales was attempted at Ultimate Paintball, and Carly did her best for a couple of years, but it just didn't work for whatever reason. There has been thrown together NXL events in Tasmania and elsewhere, but ultimately, I think, much like Lachlan said, it is probably time for the event organisers in their each individual states to just run under their own banner, much like Troy at Valhalla Paintball is doing formally. And NXL Queensland host, they are now running the Brisbane Fives, or the Brisbane 5v5. They're running that as their own series with their own rules, and then they can dictate the terms as far as rate of fire, the paint that they use, all those things. They're not held to the NXL system, which I think started great. It was hurt by COVID, and it just has not bounced back whatsoever. Namoski saying, did Raw take the money? No, they went and played. They went over and played the event in Division 3, I believe it was, and then the guys from MBS did the same the following year. Craig is saying, if anyone is interested in playing Super 7's M's, hit them up. The Bounty Hunters are still open for players that would like to come out and play on their roster for round 2. And that is the team that won Super 7's M's the first time around. So could find yourself on the podium if you jump in with those guys. And Lachlan just adding, I think advertisements is the key, regardless of the event, for sure. And Super Sevens does it best by a mile. Yeah, there's no doubting that. You look at the videos, the webcast, the graphics. Just go back to the Super Sevens page this week alone and the announcements of the teams that will be playing the event. Nobody does it better. It hypes you up to play the event. And ultimately, if we talk paintball, the format can be different, but we're still playing on a field that's generally about 45 meters long by 36 wide. You're still playing behind inflatable bunkers. All of these things are so very similar. The game is so it is fun and enjoyable no matter just about where you play it, but you need to be made to want to play it. And the Super Sevens make you want to play their events. They are the best at it, and other people could learn a lot from that. Harley saying I'd be keen as for a 3-a-side series at Snipers. Yeah, I usually check in with Matt Kashadi from Snipers once every couple of weeks. We have a chat on the phone. He's someone that I bounce around a lot of ideas with, who's really switched on, and I appreciate his opinion on a lot of things. I'll run that by him the next time we catch up, because I think if Snipers Den doesn't do something, then players might be lost to the game down there in Victoria. So I'll get onto that for all you Victorian-based guys, because I think that that would be the best bet for you. Speaking of, it's tough at the moment to get people out to play with all of the various things that are going on, cost of living, the travel expenses, all of those things. And off the back of that, I spoke with Diane from Anthrax the last couple of weeks, and I didn't realize that last year when we ran we did a sale over the Anzac Day weekend. I think they did 15 or 20% off last year. It was one of the best promos that Anthrax have done to save players money, and they're doing it again this year. I showed this graphic last week. It's actually on right now. If you want to go to shopanthrax.com, you can save 25% off your paintball gear if you use the code PBHQ 2023. And it's not just paintball gear, I should say. They also do a heap of gear if you're someone that's in the gym, if you're someone like Connor, who I've seen posting a lot about running and that type of thing lately, athletic wear outside of paintball. So just like gym wear, athletic wear, they're doing a lot of that stuff at the moment too. Their bags are amongst the best in the business. So 25% off all of that stuff at Anthrax this week, for today and tomorrow. If you're looking to save some money, jump on there and get yourself a deal. And last week I recorded the show. I had a conversation with someone prior to the show last week who said, why don't you put the show up on Spotify? And it is mostly a visual medium. I show a lot of pictures. I talk about things like field layouts where it is visual and you need to see it. The GTEK 180R showed photos of that. But I did record the show last week. I am recording the show again right now, tonight, and I will upload it to Spotify. If it's something that you think that you would like or that you think is beneficial, let me know. I'll do it for a couple of weeks, see if people enjoy it. I think I had something like 6 whole listens last week over on Spotify, so it's not exactly setting the world on fire over there, but I also haven't promoted it all too heavily. But yeah, PBHQ Live will be on Spotify. And as a side note to that, I spoke with Chris Dickens earlier today from over in WA, who, by the way, sent out the prizes for everyone, their tank vents. This is the version 2 of the tank vent that I now have one of as well. Try and get that up nice and close there. So thank you to Dickens for sending that over to me. If I get that back up without knocking things over. I was speaking to him about, with Spotify, potentially going into doing interviews and chats with players from around the country, talking about their paintball experiences, whether that's at a local level, whether they've traveled internationally to play, and just a bit more paintball content with Australian paintballers, so that you've got something to listen to on Spotify. So if you'd like to listen to something like that, well, I could potentially do that too, finding half an hour or 45 minutes to chat to people and record the chats and upload them to Spotify to talk more things paintball. I think that's something easy that I can do, and it is quite an easy system for me to set up and upload. So I'd be willing to do that if people are willing to listen. But much like this show, if nobody's listening, if nobody's watching, then there's not much benefit. But hopefully we can continue to grow that. And to wrap up tonight, quick shout out for some birthdays. Cam, Paul, Tori, Scotty Martin, and Hunter Barnes all celebrating birthdays this week. I love this photo, by the way, from Kayla Woodham over in Singapore at the event. Cracking photo. Reloading photos are always one of my favorites, so really like that one. And I felt like there was going to be something else that I was going to mention to wrap up tonight. Oh, yeah, there is. Upcoming events that's been scrolling through here for the night. If you're up in Queensland, the Ragnarok scenario event that was looking like that was scheduled to happen this weekend is not happening. They're going to run a club day instead, so you can sign up for that one. Hit up Troy at Valhalla. NXL Queensland, as mentioned, cancelled. NXL ACT, as far as I'm aware, is most likely not running. I'll post about that up on the PBHQ page if anything changes. And good luck to the guys from PPG. Somewhere in here, the Thailand Expo League will be scrolling through as well. The guys from PPG are making the trip over to Thailand to play in that one, and they've linked up with a player from Thailand and a player from Singapore to jump in with them to fill out the team. So that's really cool. And the Super Sevens, as mentioned just there in that one, they're all starting to come up soon again too. So it's all happening in the next little bit. Cooper likes the idea of Spotify and the interviews, and Harley likes the idea of a podcast. Yeah, well, I can do that too. It takes up a lot of time putting together the webcast, which is my primary focus that I do each and every Monday. But I might be able to record a couple of interviews every so often and just release one every week or every fortnight or something like that if players are interested. And I think there is enough interesting people in paintball to chat to and make that happen. So we might just look into that. Let me know what you think. Until then, join me next Monday and we'll talk all about it. All things paintball again next Monday. Most importantly, the NXL in the USA and a follow-up from the Manawatu Titans. Best of luck again to those guys in the semi-pro division. See you next Monday. Bye.